Hello, my name is Monica Jones, and I have chosen to spotlight the elderly population as the vulnerable group for my social work advocacy presentation. So, what makes one vulnerable? To be considered vulnerable, one must be capable of being physically and emotionally wounded. They have to be one that is more apt to be open to attack or emotional damage. And then, who are the elderly? According to the United States government, the elderly is considered those persons that are 65 years or older. The government considers those that are 65 to 74 your early elderly population and your 75 and older as your late elderly. I've always had a passion of working with the elderly. I've worked with the elderly at various nursing homes and assisted livings in the Birmingham area. And oftentimes, this is the generation that is either exploited, overlooked, and oftentimes taken advantage of. When I look at some of the social implications and impact of the elderly as it relates to being vulnerable, the social impact involves social isolation, loneliness, um, and also just a sudden life change. They're no longer in the workforce, they're at home, they're by themselves. The psychological impact involves being depressed, being sad, and also oftentimes the early onset of dementia. Some other implications involve chronic illnesses, which is the medical impact, and loss of mobility. They're having more difficulty getting in and out of the car. They're having a lot of difficulty with just taking care of their day to day needs, like taking a bath. Uh, and last but not least, the elderly are more apt to being abused financially, sexually, emotionally, and physically. Through my research, it was found that most times when an elderly is exploited financially, it is done by a family member or a trusted friend. Also, there are some facts that are very startling that I found out during my research. An estimated 60,000 elderly in America spend Christmas and the holidays alone, which further uh, solidifies the impact of them being lonely, which can lead to depression. So, what can we do? There are some community resources that are out there in Alabama and statewide that can assist with making sure that the elderly are taken care of in the least restrictive environment. Uh, there's a program called the Alabama Care Plan program that actually puts uh, workers in the home to help the elderly with transportation, with in home chores, as well as the Alabama Medicaid waiver program. I believe that this program allows for a homemaker to go into the home up to 20 hours a week. And this allows the elderly to actually be more independent and to stay at home as long as possible. Studies have shown that people do better in the comfort of their own homes if they can stay there safely. Also, the community has area agency on aging programs, which have nutrition centers where the elderly can be picked up and taken to those centers. And it promotes a means of socialization as well as provide them with a meal. If the person cannot, of course, get out of the house, they do have the Meals on Wheels program. And I do believe that the more agencies or the more entities that are involved in an elderly person's care, the more eyes are there to see if something is wrong or if they've had a sudden decline. And so community resources are instrumental in making sure that the elderly is taken care of and not being exploited. Some of the best practices involve installing bath rails in the home so that that person can stay in the home as long as possible. um, implement what we call the emergency response systems in the home. I'm sure that many of you have seen those devices that says I've fallen and I can't get up. And this allows for the person to maintain a certain level of independence while also having that necklace around their neck to press if they got into an emergency crisis. There are so many signs that are noticeable when we, as family members, as caregivers, realize that mom or dad is not able to live alone. They're more vulnerable. Some signs may include things such as their clothes are not neat and clean anymore. They're forgetting to turn off the stove or the coffee pot. These things are some indicators that, hey, look, mom or dad may need more advanced care, or they may need more help in the home. We as social workers can do so much to advocate for our elderly population. And that's where we can actually get out there and be a voice for them, because oftentimes our elderly look for caregivers and social workers and nurses and doctors to advocate on their behalf. But we as social workers, we know how to advocate, right? We can generate community awareness. We can write letters to our county and local officials. And last but not least, of course, we can offer our own services. We can go out into the community and make nursing homes, churches, family members aware of those things that are available to help their loved ones, and also help link them with those resources. We as social workers have done this for years. We know the resources, we know how to get these family members connected to what they need, especially when it comes to the dynamics of insurance and benefits and Medicaid, and how to get into a nursing home and how to use those 20-day rehab stays. There are ways to make sure that our elderly are taken care of without being exploited. I would like to close by just saying this quote by Rosalind Carter. There are only four kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those that will eventually need a caregiver. So, you guys, let's take care of our elderly because they have taken care of us. Thank you so much.